What's going on, everybody? I'm Richard Siegler, and I'm here to talk to you about Grand Cathay and the Old World. Wait, this is not Warhammer 40k. Why the heck am I doing a video on the Old World and Grand Cathay in particular? Well, first up, Grand Cathay is releasing for pre-order today, so if you want to check out all the brand new models and rules, they are releasing and previewing today across the interwebs. But why am I doing it? Well, I have been a longtime fan of the Total War Warhammer series. Since the very first game, I have played many hours, more hours than I'm willing to admit, and with Warhammer Total War 3, I came to love the Grand Cathay faction. I've played many campaigns with the different sub-factions for Grand Cathay, and as soon as I saw that the models were coming to Old World, I just got so enormously excited about them and wanted to share my excitement with you. In the build-up to this release, Games Workshop have released several different articles on the Warhammer community website detailing the release for Grand Cathay, all the new models that they're going to be selling for this line, in addition to some of the interviews that the design studio had done with Creative Assembly and the Total War team. And so there's a lot of information out there. One of the most fascinating things that I read was that even though Grand Cathay has been in the lore of the Old World for a very long time, the impetus for creating the designs and filling out the lore behind the faction really came from Total War and that Creative Assembly team trying to get a new good guy faction for their third game. And Grand Cathay was the one they settled on, and Games Workshop, of course, being loyal to its lore, wanted to go ahead and fully flesh out the faction. And unbeknownst to the people who were originally designing it, the Old World game came back, and all of a sudden, there was an impetus now to create new models for that for Grand Cathay, and this is the first big new all-plastic release. The models are gorgeous and amazing, but this video is going to focus in on the lore of Grand Cathay. As a fan of the faction, I've tried to read everything that I possibly could on it. With this new Arcane Journal, we have the single most complete and up-to-date record of the Grand Cathay lore, and so I wanted to share some of that with you, hopefully get you excited about this faction. I don't know if you've been playing Total War Warhammer 3 yourself, but I think this is a great moment to go ahead and congratulate Games Workshop on an excellent job creating these amazing models, and hopefully we'll be seeing more. I know myself, having played many Total War campaigns, there are plenty of different units that are not currently in the plastic line, Celestial Dragon Guard being one that I really want to see personally, as well as Sky Junk. Love Sky Lanterns, would love to see Sky Junk as well, but there's plenty of other units that I would love to see make the tabletop as well. If this faction becomes popular enough, I'm sure that we will see these models. I'd love to see a Wan Bo and Satang the Watcher as well. Personally, that's my favorite sub-faction for Grand Cathay. Hopefully the excitement generated around this release will encourage Games Workshop to continue producing models for this line. If you're a Warhammer 40k fan and don't care about the Old World, think about it. Really cool. In addition, I think there's a lot of really cool conversion material from these new models that can be ported into other games, whether Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40k and others. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into some of the brand new lore, situate ourselves in Grand Cathay and its history, and kind of look at how Games Workshop is framing the faction as a new playable army in the Old World. The vast nation of Grand Cathay is one of the oldest civilizations in the world of legend. Rivaling the great realms of the elves or dwarves in its scope and power, it's a harmonious land that has survived largely unchanged for thousands of years, an empire that stands eternally as a bulwark against the evils of the world, defiantly resisting the multitudinous threats posed by the nefarious forces arrayed against it. Now, as an empire in the East, Grand Cathay is rightly counted amongst the largest and most prosperous of human nations in all of the known world. A land of bustling cities, great expanses of fertile farmland, and towering mountain ranges that reach toward the heavens above. But the size of its territory or number of citizens is not what sets it apart from its contemporaries. Rather, what distinguishes the empire of the Celestial Dragon from the nations of the Old World is the harmony and unity of its people and their masters. For where other nations are riven by strife born of the jealous and greed of unworthy rulers, Grand Cathay knows no such turmoil or dissent. Where other nations are blighted by internecine warfare, their people ever fearful and driven to jealousy guard their meager possessions and hoard what little temporal power they possess. Cathayans are not so mean of spirit. They are a people united in purpose, rightly proud of their great nation and its powerful rulers. Cathayans are ever diligent in their work, always considerate of the needs of their neighbors and elders, and safe in the certain knowledge that their masters are likewise ever mindful of their subjects' contentment. Such peace and harmony comes not from a cowed population, for the people of Grand Cathay are bold and courageous warriors, and ever-curious seekers of knowledge. Now, the tranquility enjoyed by the people of the Celestial Dragon's eternal realm stems from the nature of its rulers, for Grand Cathay is an empire ruled by dragons in more than name. To the men of the West, the dragons of Grand Cathay are powerful rulers of an ancient dynasty, beloved by their subjects and unassailable upon bejeweled thrones within gilded palaces. Yet the nations of the Old World seldom think deeply upon the nature of the Cathayan dragons, considering their grand titles to be just that, titles granted to powerful rulers by loyal subjects. But there's no hyperbole in the titles the dragons of Grand Cathay wear, for they are mortal creatures of tremendous power who can trace their lineage back to the primeval origins of the world, before even the Old Ones descended from the stars. Greatest of these dragons is Zhen Yang, the Celestial Dragon Emperor, a being of immeasurable age who adopts the form of a human by choice to live amongst the people he rules. Together with his empress, Kuei Yin, the Moon Dragon, and their 9 draconic children, the Celestial Dragon has ruled the East since before men walked the lands now known as Grand Cathay. These dragons, and by extension their people, are creatures of order who seek balance in all things. Unlike those who had ruled the empire of the Old World, the dragon's desire for order and balance is not born of a need to tame the wilderness or achieve technological and economic dominance, but rather to be one with the world in which they exist. If other nations fight the currents of fate by swimming against them, the dragons of Grand Cathay have learned to move within these currents, turning their environment, the winds of magic, and even the will of their enemies to their advantage. The realm of the Celestial Dragon predates the coming of the Old Ones to the world of legend, and though little is known of such ancient times, what is known is that when the cold earth shuddered and lava flowed from restless volcanoes, when the smoke-blackened skies above were filled with soaring dragons that battled for superiority amongst the mountain peaks, the Celestial Dragon ruled the greatest expanses of the Eastern Hemisphere unrivaled. With the coming of the Old Ones and the warming of the world, Zhen Yang, as the Celestial Dragon named himself, saw the power wielded by the servants of these godly beings from beyond the stars, and though others of his kind made war upon these interlopers, he chose to observe their strange industry. Through this careful observation, Zhen Yang learned to command the winds of magic unleashed upon his world from the towering gateways raised by the Old Ones. Over long centuries, he watched as the great beasts of his world retreated into the darkness. Their dominion over the lands is usurped by the young races of elves, dwarves, and men. It was at this time that the Celestial Dragon took for himself a mate in the form of Kuei Yin, the Moon Dragon. Born of Yu Yin, the moon called Manslib in the Old World, Kuei Yin first adopted the form of a dragon so that she might descend to the world and live beside Zhen Yang before sharing with him the secrets of her shape-shifting that both could take on human forms and walk freely amongst the tribes of man that thrived in Grand Cathay. With the Moon Dragon at his side, her tremendous grace and luminosity a natural counterbalance to Zhen Yang's blazing strength and fiery humors, the Celestial Dragon began guiding the people of his lands, aiding them as they mastered the arts of masonry, metallurgy, and alchemy. Gradually, the Celestial Dragon worked to unite the tribes of his realm, becoming a respected leader, though he resisted titles and refused their worship or adulation, preferring to spread enlightenment rather than wallow in praise. In time, the pair welcomed 9 draconic children, teaching each of them the art of shapeshifting and the mastery of the winds of magic, and tampering their primal fury that they, too, may walk amongst men. As these children grew, they aided their parents in the betterment of the people of Grand Cathay, teaching them ever more of the arts of civilization and leading them in their exploration of other lands and their encounters with other races. Yet despite the joy of Zhen Yang and his family, and despite the prosperity of the folk of Grand Cathay, not all was well in the realm of the Celestial Dragon. From the north, where the great polar gates of the Old Ones hung, linking the world of legend to the distant and unimaginable realms of these enigmatic beings, whispers crept unbidden into the Celestial Dragon's dreams. At night, the faces of leering demons haunted him, offering him power unimagined if he would but help them cross the barrier the Old Ones had first opened, then barred between their realm, the Aether, and his. The vast dimensional gates the Old Ones had erected at the world's poles served as more than mere portals, allowing almost instantaneous travel across the interstellar deeps. They were conduits through which raw magic flowed from an alternate dimension called the Aether. This arcane energy drove the world-altering machineries of the Old Ones and gave power to their sorcerous servants. Indeed, it was this very power that the celestial dragon himself had studied and mastered. Yet magic was not the only thing that dwelt within the aether. Great, predatory beings swam within its strange currents. Drawn to the warmth and light of the Old One's gate, these vast entities hungered for the vitality of the world beyond. They probed at the portal, feeling around its edges for weaknesses and sending tendrils of their consciousness into the world beyond. Their whispered voices intruding upon the dreams of mortals. In time, the denizens of the aether grew strong and bold enough to break through the great portals of the Old Ones, shattering them and unleashing a cataclysmic torrent of chaos and destruction. In an instant, the heavens were rent asunder, and hideous waves of raw chaos enveloped the world. As the disaster unfolded, the celestial dragon wrestled with the uncontrollable magic that raged around him. Gradually, he bent the torrent of raw power to his will, stilling the storms and banishing from Grand Cathay the legions of demons that rode upon them, scattering them to the far corners of the world. Chaos had come to the world of legend, and the celestial dragon knew instinctively that with it came an epic war. Through the long and tumultuous centuries that followed the great cataclysm, the dragons of Grand Cathay battled the myriad demonic legions that assailed their lands. Yet despite their power, Zhen Yang knew that he and his kin could not resist the evils arrayed against them alone. Thus the celestial dragon turned his attention towards the unification of the fractured tribes of men that dwelt within his realm, for, though they had long held him in high regard, the tribes of the north, south, east, and west cared little for one another, preferring to make war than ally against the greater threats. To aid his plans, the celestial dragon dispatched several of his children to the far corners of his realm, tasking each of them with earning the loyalty and respect of the tribes that dwelt in their given lands, and unifying them into a single nation under his rule. Thus did Miao Ying, the storm dragon, travel north to live amongst the stalwart warriors of Nangao, whilst Li Dao, the fire dragon, ventured south to unify the warlike tribes of the jungles of Qian and the towering mountains of heaven. To the west went Zhao Ming, the iron dragon, tasked to share the dragon's wisdom with the alchemists of Shangyang. To the east went Yin Yin, the sea dragon, her heart filled with the thirst for adventure. She would lead the shipbuilders and sailors of Fuchao, and the conquest of the Jade Sea was entrusted to Yuan Bo, the jade dragon. From his palace in Weijin, the pragmatic Yuan Bo would act as a voice of reason between people that had once been enemies and ensure the unity of the nascent Grand Cathay. With the people of Grand Cathay unified under his rule, the celestial dragon entrusted the command of his armies to Shyama, the eldest and most beloved of his children. Long had Shyama battled the evils of chaos at her father's side, and with vast armies of brave warriors at her command, she swore to rid the world of the demonic legions that assailed it. Yet for all her courage and ferocity, Shyama's pride was her weakness, and it was this pride that caused her to ignore her father's warnings that chaos could not be defeated by might alone. Instead, Shyama mustered her armies and marched north, intent upon defeating the ruinous powers within their own twisted realm. Such was Shyama's might, and so powerful was the sorcery she commanded, that her armies swept aside the demonic legions that stood in her way, charging headlong towards the ruined border between the mortal world and the aether. Before her, Shyama saw only the flight of chaotic beasts and warped demons, and she reveled in her victories, realizing too late that she had been tricked by the gods of the aether. By some foul sorcery, the ruinous powers had befuddled the dragon, making her believe her own bold soldiers were loathsome creatures of chaos. It was not enemies that fled before her wrath, but her own loyal warriors. It was not demonic ichor that dripped from her talons, but the lifeblood of brave Cathayans. Filled with shame and horror, Shyama turned tail and fled back to her father's realm, driving her surviving warriors before her. Even as the prideful Shyama sped from the realm of chaos, the ruinous powers were not done with their torment of her. They weaved powerful sorceries around the young dragon and her warriors, making her appear to her kin as a terrible lord of the aether, and giving the fleeing remnants of her once mighty army the appearance of capering demons. Thus, as Shyama neared the borders of her father's realm, Miao Ying, the storm dragon, believed a demonic legion descended upon Nangao from the chaos wastes, and she wasted no time in mustering her might to meet the threat. Sensing the calamity unfolding on the border of his realm's northern province, the celestial dragon raced to intervene. But for all his haste, Zhen Yang could not alone hope to arrive in time. As he descended upon the accursed battlefield from the heavens, he witnessed the warriors of Nangao closing upon the wounded Shyama, and he saw firsthand the horror on the faces of his daughters as the ensorcelment of the ruinous powers faded and the storm dragon realized that the twisted demon her soldiers had struck down was no enemy, but her own sister. As the celestial dragon cradled the dying Shyama in his arms, she begged forgiveness for her foolishness. Though he lacked the magic to restore her, Zhen Yang used his great powers to bind his daughter's spirit to Grand Cathay, and charged her with the task of protecting the ancestors of his people for as long as his realm endured. Thus did Shyama come to rule the underworld in her father's name, a mighty spirit dragon bound to Grand Cathay by the most potent of the celestial dragon's sorceries. With Shyama's spirit preserved, Zhen-Yang turned his attention to his people. Concerned that rumors of Shyama's manipulation by the ruinous powers and her death at the hands of Cathayan soldiers would destabilize the nation and allow chaos to fester, the celestial dragon turned to the moon dragon for counsel. Through her grief, Kuei Yan used her magic to obfuscate the memories of those that had witnessed Shyama's demise and spread the legend of the spirit dragon. Though all would know of Shyama as the guardian of the underworld, none in all Cathay would remember when she walked amongst them in physical form. But the celestial dragon's heart still seethed with anger and regret. For centuries, he had resisted the evil forces that battered his realm, protecting his family and his subjects alike. But he had always secretly known for his efforts were futile, for the ruinous powers only grew stronger with each passing year. Now, with his firstborn daughter slain by the machinations of chaos, Zhen-Yang knew that he had to act if he wanted to end the long war. Unbeknownst to Zhen-Yang, as he set in motion plans to slay the great beasts of the Aether that ruled the demonic legions, similar plans were unfolding in distant lands. In far Uthwan, a council of mages prepared a great ritual that would still the raging storms of magic. In Lustria, the Old One's few remaining servants began a potent conjuration to banish the demonic legions from the world. In the World's Edge Mountains, a living god undertook a quest to seal the shattered gates of the Old Ones. His preparations made, the celestial dragon led the massed armies of Grand Cathay northwards, into the rolling storms of chaos that eternally surrounded the great tear in reality that hung like a black scar above the collapsed dimensional gates of the Old Ones. Battling hordes of demons that coalesced from the magic-infused air about them, Zhen-Yang's host advanced slowly through the hinterlands between reality and the Aether, until eventually the realm of chaos lay before them. Suddenly, a host of towering demon lords descended from the tortured heavens to challenge the dragons of Grand Cathay. Unperturbed, the celestial dragon and his children rose into the storm-wrecked skies to meet the threat, revealing their true forms to the enemies arrayed against them. One by one, the greatest and most powerful demonic servants of the ruinous powers were laid low. Fell lords of the Aether that existed only to conquer the worlds in the names of their evil masters were torn asunder by the fury of the dragons, their foul essences banished back to the warped realms from which they came. The ferocity of the dragons and their mastery of the winds of magic proved too much for the demons arrayed against them, and the ruinous powers were forced to commit ever more of their legions to the battle. Thus did the heroism of the Cathayan dragons in the face of chaos converge with that of heroes of distant lands. With the subsiding of the storms of magic that had raged for more than 1,000 years, the age of chaos had ended, and a new age had begun. In the years that followed the celestial dragon's great battle with the demon lords of the Aether, peace came to Grand Cathay. The elemental winds blew more gently, allowing Zhen-Yang to begin his studies of them anew and perfect the art of Feng Shi, the mastery of magic, and the host of demons and chaotic beasts that had for so long assailed his lands withdrew beyond his borders. This is but a partial snippet of the lore that you can find in the Arcane Journal for Grand Cathay. So if you're interested in this and want to read more about Grand Cathay and its lore, and then possibly build and paint some of the brand new miniatures for the line, I highly recommend checking out the Games Workshop website, going ahead and pre-ordering some of this stuff, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to get their very first taste of the old world with Grand Cathay. There's been a lot of hype about the models, and I can promise you of the models that I do have, like this Cathayan Sentinel, they are absolutely outstanding, super easy to build, they've got great character, they really fit with the theme of Grand Cathay. If you're a fan of the Total War games, the models are exactly as you imagine, and you can paint them in whatever scheme you want. I've gone ahead and painted my Terracotta Sentinel in the scheme of Satang the Watcher. He's one of my favorite legendary heroes from Warhammer Total War 3, and even though he doesn't have a direct correspondence model, I'd love to convert up some wings and potentially a great bow and arrow for him in the future. But the models, they're so fantastic. I highly recommend you go ahead and check them out. And if you have any questions for me about the lore in this book or anything else, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit of something different than you normally get on the Art of War channel, but each of us has our own passions and favorite aspects of the broader gaming world, and this is a little bit of mine, so hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time for more. So long for now.